and welcome to the Daily Space Weather. We've got some additional sunspots forming here, a bunch of filamentary activity, an Earth-directed CME, and lots more to cover. Let's do it, and welcome to the Smash News Network least busted name in news. So here's the southern hemisphere. This new sunspot group is quite interesting. No major flares from it yet. We'll be keeping an eye on it. And when I say ion, well, pardon the pun, here are some ions, helium ions. Yes, 304 angstroms from the SDO. That full disk view is just splentacular. And here's some other wavelengths. What happened? There are some other wavelengths. That's 171 plus 335 angstroms. As we bring you the most detailed solar imagery and most comprehensive space weather in the world. Here's your SDO intensity gram. We decided to bring it up in gray this time. It shows a little more contrast. We've got a little bit of sunspot growth up here, so don't be surprised to see some large flares coming from that area. This sunspot down here has grown a little bit, and we've got at least one new sunspot group forming here in the southern hemisphere. These groups over here have formed and since evaporated, it looks like. We'll show some more high definition imagery of that a little bit later. Thanks for leaving comments, Tinman1057 and BMVR13. Here's your SDO colorized magnetogram to show you the magnetic fields and their orientation, be it north or south pole. Take a moment to press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Thanks to our YouTube viewers for putting up with the pathetic and disgusting censorship on the platform. Dear Big Tech, we implore you to do your own job and realize that centralization is dead. Centralization is dead, so don't be a zombie corporation. Do your own job. Stop misleading investors. Press like, press subscribe, press share, etc. Leave us a comment. Thanks to everybody who has. Don't forget to check our community posts. If you want to support the channel, since we make just this side of nothing to put the videos on YouTube, thanks to the pathetic censorship on the platform, it's just the most detailed space weather you'll find in the world and the most comprehensive imagery of the sun. Become a member of the Smash Team at smashobash.com/Smash Team. Join at the gold or silver level if you want to become executive producers of the content, increasing the likelihood these videos will continue to exist, remain publicly visible, and free for all to view. And thanks for leaving a comment, Mike Bordages. There's also a bronze level there if you're unwilling or unable to open your cobweb-encrusted wallet and send us a few bucks per month. The gold annual paid-up subscription is the best value at smashomash.com/Smash Team. Welcome to the Neo Renaissance. Visit smashomash.com to find our links. We are still indeed on Patreon, Facebook. There's our Discord permanent invite link and more. Another link you can find on the homepage is to SureMed. SureMed, it's not insurance, it's an association membership. An association with the American Better Health Organization, focused on improving the health of its members. It'll open you up to the ability to purchase certain types of insurance on a group basis with no underwriting, by the way. All you need is a SureMed membership. And as a base member of SureMed, you'll get doctors by phone, counselors by phone, virtual veterinarians, discounts on vision, dental. The retail pharmacy is fantastic. Save a ton of money just with doctors by phone and the retail pharmacy. Pick up an accident plan by becoming a Plus member. And thanks to everybody who's joined SureMed. Links below the video and on the homepage at smashomash.com. Today's featured product is MANSA, which stands for Make America Not Suck Again. If you've noticed, America's been sucking, and maybe even the world has been sucking. This is not a political slogan, by the way. I'm completely apolitical here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. It's up to you to act local and think global, which is what the slogan is talking about, making America not suck again. If it's been sucking where you are, let us know in the comments. And again, pick up some merch. Tell your friends and foes about us that way if you like. Start a conversation about perhaps why you think America and indeed Earth has been sucking. Have you noticed the pathetic attempts at gaslighting? We call it shartlighting. If somebody fails to gaslight, we'd like to call it shartlighting. Yes, we've defined it on the Twitter page. Go follow us over there. As we see, censorship is so cured. Censorship is fixed because Elon Musk, investment scammer, has purchased Twitter. Well, guess what? It's not fixed. If you visit the links below the video to the Red Bubble Shop, you'll find our products here in order of best-selling. So there are the best-selling products, some of which include words that cannot be mentioned on the pathetic censorship platform of YouTube, but the best-selling there in the upper left nonetheless. Whoops, sorry about all those facts, YouTube. And of course, we've re-released the Smasher Price My First Pandemic products as well. Let's get back to space and Earth weather. So looking at some Earth weather here, there's some violent spattering there from the Strombolian volcano, which has actually calmed down since Thursday, October 14th, as there were some pyroclastic flows, lava fountaining, some rock falls, etc. Stromboli calming down there. Shivaluch, volcanic ash not identifiable in satellite imagery. Don't assume it's not erupting. Please don't pole vault the caldera. Chikorochki not provided there. It could be erupting. Not sure on that one. Sakurajima exploded, flight level 060. Subanose-jima exploded, flight level 050. That's a 5,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. Mount Ibu, flight level 070. East Java, Indonesia has one. It's called Semeru. 14,000-foot ash plume from Semeru, flight level 140. Flight level 190, Popocatépetl, back on the list here in central Mexico as it explodes. Nevada del Ruby is exploding, flight level 200. It's a 20,000-foot ash plume, 23,000-foot ash plume from Sangay in Ecuador as it explodes. Revenador in that same nation exploding, flight level 150. Flight level 230 over Sabancaya as it explodes in Peru, and we're unable to detect Nevados de Chilean. Again, don't assume it's not erupting. Don't pole vault the caldera. Seismic activity here, moderate over the past 24 hours, according to the 90-day bar graph there from volcanodiscovery.com's seismic bar graph. I like it. It's showing you a 90-day picture in simple bar graph form. The largest quake of the past 24 was a 6.3 off the coast of Colombia and Ecuador. In the Central Pacific Ocean, there's the location of that 6.3 magnitude quake. I didn't see any alerts about tsunamis, did you? It occurred at 12:48 Universal Time yesterday on October 16th. We're going to scroll up the list here. There was a swarm of earthquakes there in the Western Caribbean also. No major quakes. No major quakes at all over the past 24 hours except for that 6.3. So let us know if you felt any ground shaken. We're always interested in viewer comments, and thanks for leaving so many comments there, viewers, on the Twitch stream. If you're viewing at any place besides Twitch, twitch.tv/smashomash is where we regularly stream to Twitch. Indonesia had a 4.1 here just in the past couple of hours. That was a 5.1. Yeah, 5.1. You get the idea. Let's get back to space. Here's some composite imagery. It's 171 plus 193 angstroms. Great for showing filaments. You can see some around the north polar region up here, as well as around the south polar region. This crown prominence here looking like it's migrated a little bit. There's a close-up of that northern region. I think there may have been a CME that actually came out of that. We'll talk about the CME a little bit later in the video. The radio flux has come up a little bit to 119 solar flux units. There's the 1-year graph of the radio flux. It's that black line. And below it, the red line is the sunspot number, which we've seen a little increase in here. The Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard not forecasting any geomagnetic unrest or geomagnetic storms. We are expecting a CME impact. I'm expecting that to arrive here, let's see, late in the day on the 19th. So sometime around here, we may see a little uptick. It's a pretty minor CME. We'll get to the implications of that. We'll show you some imagery here a little later in the video. And here's the earthly geospace for the past 4 hours. We still do have a heightened solar wind speed. That's Earth's magnetic moment from space for you new viewers out there. It's the Space Weather Modeling Framework. This particular series of data is showing the Space Weather Modeling Framework model for magnetohydrodynamic pressure for the last 4 hours out to about 12 Earth diameters. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. This is magnetic flux density, or nanotesla. Also the last 4 hours, showing you the most likely places on the surface for aurorae, for pipeline, rail line, and power grid induction. Things quite geomagnetically calm here at the moment, despite that slightly heightened solar wind speed. KP is only 0.67 is the KP index at the moment. The planetary K index, a measurement of global geomagnetism. And let's move to the real-time solar wind. Keep in mind, folks, this is measured at Lagrangian point 1, about 1 million miles from Earth, because these measurements have to take place outside Earth's magnetosphere. We have seen a waning here of the high-speed wind stream, which was showing us a decent signal here around 580 kilometers per second. Now it's dropped down to about 539 kilometers per second with a density of about 10.5. 10.5 protons per cubic centimeter. The rest of that fairly uneventful. Looks like maybe some minor CME strikes here, as we saw little increases in the temperature, density, and velocity there. But those are all pretty minor strikes. Not enough to cause any significant changes here. The magnetic field not really shifting at all as a result of those. Speaking of magnetic fields, here are the measurements from the GOES 16 and GOES 17 magnetometers, showing a little tighter range here over the past about 18 hours. Some lower lows and some higher lows and lower highs. And they just had to do some maneuvers to maintain their geosynchronous orbit. Those things are located at about 22,000 miles of altitude, if you're wondering where the GOES 16 and 17 are located. Next, looking at the heliospheric current sheet. And I'm expecting to see some additional sunspot activity forming in the northern hemisphere here. So we'll be taking a look at that later. We've got a South Pole-oriented current sheet here at the moment. That is your top view ecliptic plane field plot, and let's look at some line of sight views here before we get to coronal holes. There's your line of sight field plot. Solar polar fields in red and green, solar B field in blue, and solar magnetogram there in, well, obviously gray, white, and black. Here's a coronal hole line of sight plot. And what do you got? We do have some South Pole-oriented coronal holes here, some well-defined ones here rotating in the southeastern quadrant. Let's take a look at those in 211 angstroms. They are showing up as well-defined already, so those are going to be some significant coronal holes. Those might provide some high-speed winds, and the current solar winds are provided by these series of systems. Not super well defined, so we might see some real significant signals here, although these are quite far south of the equator. Next, we'll move to sunspots. So this one here, this new group here, that's pretty interesting. That's known as 3124. There are a couple new groups to get named. We'll cover those here a little bit later in the video. First, we'll take a look at the sun and some more wavelengths here. This is 131 plus 1700 angstroms. And let's switch to 1700 angstroms and take a look at 3124 in close-up. It has grown a little bit in the past 24 hours. And as it approaches the limit, its likelihood of producing major flares goes up. Also some groups in the north. See these groups up here? These are also much more likely to produce large flares here as they set. Probably because solar flares are anisotropic, meaning they are at different intensity depending on the viewing angle. So here's the 171 angstroms wavelength. Splentacular imagery there of sunspot 3124. Goes proton flux here, not showing any spikes, no major flares in the past 24 hours, just minor C-class intensifications. And here's the 131 angstroms wavelength. And I believe those C-class intensifications came from these setting regions up here. So those are magnetically complex enough to produce an M-class flare, perhaps. X-class flare kind of unlikely here from these groups, but you never know. There are quite a few umbrae there, and they are magnetically complex. Next, a star chart. If you're up before dawn, you might see the rising of Mercury here ahead of the sun. It just rose over Lehigh Valley there, just above the horizon. That's Mercury. Moon way up high near the ecliptic. And we've also got Mars up there. So if you've got clear skies in the morning, you might be able to see those objects. Here's your solar system forecast for the next 7 days. That's where things are now. That's where things will be in a week. We're about 8 days from a new moon. That should be good times for all you reverse werewolves who yearn for good sleep at night. Next, we'll look at some coronagraphs. Again, we do have an Earth-directed CME, I believe. That's yesterday's imagery. That's 100 frames from yesterday. And the CME that I'm talking about is actually from today. And it might not show up very well in that imagery. It will show up on stereo A, so let's move to that. Stereo A located here at Lagrangian 0.5. We'll also show the Soho-Lasco C3 at Lagrange 1. So I paused that right there because you can see this little ejection right here. For your new viewers, Earth is off in this orientation. From stereo A's perspective, it will be behind you from the perspective of the Soho-Lasco C3. And if you look at that little ejection there, that is looking like it's mostly obscured here by the obscurement disk. I believe a portion of that is earthly directed. So again, we can expect that late in the day on the 20th, probably more like midday on the 21st. Early to midday on the 21st, that's my official guess. And we'll let these play through here. We are expecting to see more CMEs, as there are still a ton of filaments in the earthly facing portion of the solar disk. Here are some 24-hour videos. Great view of Mercury there as it transitions from the Lasco C3 to the C2. And here's a zoomed out version. And let's move to filaments. So here's the El Teide, Spain ground-based hydrogen alpha telescope. Tons and tons of filaments. Look at all the filaments. Filaments, filaments. Huge filament remaining up here. Filaments galore. We still do have a minor crown prominence happening down here in the southern polar region. Of course, this sunspot here at a very high latitude, indicating that we are still toward the beginning of the solar cycle as they move toward the equator, as we approach solar minimum. So nowhere near solar maximum, folks, a long way to go. North solar polar field here still partially oriented at the north polar region. It's a long way to Tipperary and a long way to solar maximum. So that's a GO 16 SUVI over the past about 2 or 3 hours. And here is some bonus feature segment. Charging hazards are non-existent at the moment. It's clear sailing for satellites. The GOES electron flux here returning to more normal levels. That's the past 3 days as the GOES 16 and GOES 17 use radiography to make their measurements. We had a little bit higher levels than NOAA forecasted there. No arguments on the remaining forecasts from me. Those look like they're probably going to be about right. There's the 1-year chart of the electron flux to put it into context from Solon.info. If you want to check it out yourself, Solon.info. Let's take a look at the F-ionosphere layer, which is the portion of the atmosphere where the GOES 16 and GOES 17 make their measurements from their geosynchronous orbits. So quite a lot of anomalies here continuing in the ionosphere. This is the anomaly. This is the ionogram. It's all from Australian Government Bureau Meteorology. And here's the anomalygram showing anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. We show it daily, folks, because in the realm of science, if you immerse yourself in the data, you may find things that you didn't expect to find. So that's just the way it works. It's sort of unexpected. A lot of times in science, we ask questions, and often we don't get answers to those questions. We end up instead with more questions, and perhaps answers to questions not asked. Anyway, there's the latest ionogram. 10:30 Universal Time. And there's the latest anomalygram. So as you can see there, for example, high-frequency anomalies happening over Scandinavia, low-frequency anomalies happening over the central Indian Ocean, and also over Japan. Next, we'll look at the total electron content forecast. It'll show you the most likely places for GPS errors. And our regular viewers are well aware that when your GPS satellite must communicate through a lot of free electrons, the signal is refracted. That's what the total electron content is showing. And we do see some nighttime anomalies there around Antarctica, for example. But for the most part, the electrons here are a little bit more organized than they typically are during the coronal hole high-speed stream. So we're expecting to see that wane further today. Not just as a result of this information, but of course as a result of the solar wind data. So here's your latest intensitygram and latest colorized magnetogram. We're going to press refresh on both of those. And here's Sunspot 3124. It's pretty exciting. It's actually lost a little bit of magnetic complexity here, so it's more like a beta-gamma class now as opposed to a beta-gamma delta class. We haven't seen it producing very many flares. Let's check on these groups. Definitely beta-gamma class. Not really looking too beta-gamma delta class though, so. There are some small groups down here in the south as well, so there's another one. There's another small sunspot group that just formed since we did show prep. Perhaps another group forming there. So it looks like activity is kicking up once again, folks. Here's some more imagery. This is Iron Star. 94, 335 plus 193 angstroms. That is the data from yesterday plus today at SDO. And now it's time to look at weather. And there's some very cold October temperatures coming to the eastern U.S. We'll get to it. First, we're going to look at ocean temperatures here. So now this looks like an infusion of fresh water to me. If you look at this area right here, you see all this cold water. That's sea surface temperature right there. And keep in mind, folks, that salt water is more massive than fresh water. So when you get snow melt, fresh water sits on top of the more massive salt water, and that looks like a lot of ice melt there around places like Greenland. Is it stopping the Gulf Stream? Well, certainly not. You can see the Gulf Stream making it up here to Ireland still. And a lot of people are concerned that the AMOC, the Atlantic Meridional overturning circulation, is going to stop and it's going to freeze Europe. Well, how did that work out this summer? Was there a year without a summer in Europe? Well, the answer is certainly not. Are the sea surface temperatures anomalously cold? Well, they're mostly anomalously hot. See a lot of yellow there and some cold areas. So some little cold eddies there mixed in, mostly hot water anomalies there. 10, 11 degrees above normal temperatures there in a lot of places. The Gulf Stream is not shutting down, and the Northern Hemisphere is not slated to freeze anytime soon. Now, let's take a look at the jet streams of the eastern world. There you have it. Some cold air flowing up toward southwestern Australia. Here are the surface winds. We're going to show you some great Himawari 8 footage, by the way, here in a moment. Surface winds of the Americas looking like this. Large low pressure system here off the coast of Portugal. Jet streams are looking like this. Again, very cold air being sent down from central Canada into the eastern portion of the U.S. Also a jet stream convergence happening there over places like Tennessee. Clear skies, but cold temperatures. There are the jet streams of the central world. We've got 2 anticyclones here, one over Western Africa and one over the Western Indian Ocean. Those are upper level high pressures. And here are the surface winds. And let's move on. Take a look at the Himawari 8's imagery of this typhoon. I'm going to give that a minute to load as I pause for station identification. Welcome to the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. There's some great imagery from Himawari 8. One of the many ways you can prove to your friends and foes that the planet is croissant-shaped. Or did you think that the planet is perhaps shaped like a sheep's bladder? I don't know. Let us know in the comments what you think the Earth is shaped like. It's looking kind of spherical here. I don't know. Just saying. Next, your weather.gov map, and look at the freeze warnings. Criminy. Oh my God, there's a lot of freezing happening in the east central U.S. there. Yowzers. Those blue areas are freeze watches, and those purple areas are freeze warnings. So very, very cold temperatures in all those areas. If your county's lit, click your county. Texas seeing some flooding. Also southeastern New Mexico expecting some floods. And let's bring up the temperature anomaly forecast here based on the GFS model. So there's your GFS temperature anomaly forecast, and that is going to see as much as about 16 degrees Celsius below normal there. Go away. Again, that's your 72-hour GFS temperature anomaly forecast. Hot temperatures in the Pacific Northwest. We're also going to show the pressure and precipitation forecast here. It'll be the same period of time, the same model as well, the 72-hour pressure and precipitation forecast, as we are seeing snow here making its way into northern Wisconsin, portions of Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, even parts of Kentucky and West Virginia, I believe, and a large portion of western Pennsylvania expecting some snow. Yowzers. That's your 72-hour pressure and precipitation forecast. Let's take a look at the Euro model here for snowfall. And by midday Wednesday, expecting to see about 10 inches of snow there on portions of the the upper peninsula rather. Zoom in a little bit closer here. 8 inches expected there on the Euro model. So some significant snow also for the northern portion of the regular part of Michigan. DAG. That's the snow depth forecast on the Euro model. Next, looking at lightning, and Texas had quite a bit of lightning here over the past about 10 hours. And the data's looking choppy. Let's move to the real-time lightning map instead from lightningmaps.org, powered by blitzachtung.org. Do we have terrestrial strikes? And it looks like indeed we do. Black Gap Wildlife Management Area, as well as Big Bend National Park. There's thunder rolling in. Pretty concentrated system there. Next time you hear thunder, check out lightningmaps.org. Forecast thunder. Frighten the natives. Convince your friends and foes that you're Zeus, or something like that. And here's your U.S. Doppler radar map showing ALSA, the allegedly United States of America. There's the all 50 state view. Here is the lower 48 view. And you can see that counterclockwise rotation there of that low pressure system. It looks like it's centered around Lake Huron. Maybe the western portion of Lake Huron. This should show you a little better imagery of it. See that counterclockwise rotation happening up there in the 3.9 nanometer radiation map showing clouds and fog. And there is the water vapor map. Looks like some heavy rains there in Texas. As you can see, water vanishing off the water vapor map, indicating precipitation is occurring. Here's your recap. Ground-based U.S. Doppler radar system showing vertical motion of water droplets. .9 nanometer radiation showing clouds and fog. And water vapor showing all the water vapor, not just that which is condensed onto clouds. Thanks for tuning in. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off from the Smash News Network. Least busted name in news. Opinions expressed in this video, not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network. Least busted name in news.